Good afternoon and welcome to your crafty place. Today we're going to be using the Spellbinders Spooky Season Advent type calendar. I received mine from Scrapmania out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It was a limited supply, but you get 13 dies as well as the sequence, the purple and orange sequence that you see here. And there is no hole in the center of those sequins, as well as a stamp set that kind of go with the dies, or are supposed to go with the dies that are in each of the 13 packets. I have watched some videos on all of them, but I have not opened all of mine yet. So the only one that I have opened is the one that we're opening today, day number 1. And we'll get to that in just a minute. I will tell you that the fronts of the cards are not necessarily what is inside the package itself. So like day 11 there has an owl. It may not be an owl. Number 7 may not be a ghost. You know, it will vary. Everybody will get the same, but it doesn't necessarily match the outside. So, but we are going to do day number 1, and you'll notice with this one that there's a crow and a skull on the front of it, but when we open it, that is not, and you could see that from the card that on the opening page, that is not what is in here. It is actually a vampire. So we're going to cut this out a couple of different times. The first one, we're going to not make a card out of it, but I'm going to use some glitter cardstock, and I cut it off camera. I had some issues with the glitter cardstock not wanting to cut, so I just cut it off camera. I cut the body itself out of solid black as well as the glitter cardstock, and now I'm going to trim the glitter cardstock up so it's just his cape, because that's all I want out of the glitter cardstock is just the cape. So I kind of eyeball a little bit to get the body out of it. If you weren't using that thick of a glitter cardstock, you would be able to see the lines, kind of the impressions, and that would give you a perfect idea of where you needed to trim it all off at. So I just kind of, like I said, kind of eyeballed it. I wanted to keep the sides together, so that's why I kind of cut out the center there where his chest area would be. And it lined up fairly decently. It may not have been exactly perfect, but we are going to put his arms and his chest there, that purple that's kind of up at the top. We'll go over all of it. So I am going to use my Sweet Petunias glue press. I got this from Scrapmania as well. Every time I tried to get it off of scrapbook.com or some other website, they were sold out. So, and I thought maybe the glitter cardstock was a sticker, but it was not. So I was just checking there just to make sure, because I don't want to glue it down and then it come off because it's a sticker. So sticking the glitter onto the cardstock is not an issue, but sticking this cardstock onto the glitter can be a little finicky at times. You just need to be patient. You'll see that here in a minute whenever I go to put the hands on and they want to stick to my finger instead of to the glitter cardstock. I do recommend, though, using glue or some kind of wet adhesive if you're sticking onto glitter. I would not use tape. These other areas you could use tape. You could run them through your Xyron and make them into stickers and stick them down, but I would not do that with anything that you're putting on the glitter. The glue that I'm using is, I think it's pronounced Obsede. It's Obsede off of Amazon. It's very similar to Barely Art or Art Glitter Glue. It's just a lot cheaper, since I think it's probably a knockoff brand. I want to say it's the Amazon brand, but I don't know that it's actually Amazon brand. It is sold and distributed by Amazon, so maybe it is. But you know, sometimes if you're trying to get everything at once, things can get a little expensive. I think the Obsede is about like the scrapbook.com glue, where they have it on sale for $9.99. A lot of times that's what this glue is, as opposed to the $19.99 or some of the higher glue, or some of the Barely Art or the Art Glitter Glue. It does come with I think it's a 4-ounce bottle, and it comes with a fine tip bottle inside that you can put the glue into, and then it has 2 different tips with it and the pen for the tips. So you don't have to have the Sweet Petunias glue press. I have been having some issues, or was having some issues with my elbow, so it has helped out with that, because you barely press the pink, and it comes out, the pink handle there, and it comes out fine. So here I am sticking the hands on. They go down fine at first, but then whenever I go to press on them again, that's when they kind of say, oh, I like your finger better than I like the glitter. But they do eventually stay down. I used the scissors I used were the Cutterbug scissors. I did also, the paper that I have are literally just scraps. See, there's the hand that says, nope, I don't want to stick on this glitter. But it does, like I said, eventually stick. But I apologize, I don't know the names of the paper. Most of the solid color cardstock that I have is the Hobby Lobby brand. There's some from Michaels. I don't care for the Michaels as much. Just it seems thinner and flimsier than the stuff from Hobby Lobby. I also have some from Joann's before they closed. But like I said, it's just scraps. I just went through my scrap pile and got some colors out. And the first one I tried to match with what was on the little flyer or little pamphlet that came with it there. But you see there, I got a little bag. I had to modify the bag and tape it a little bit to get it to fit there perfectly with the dog treats. I did not have any chocolate candy. I'm not sure why. Usually I do. So I just decided to do it with some dog treats there. But you could put candy in there. You could put a stamp pad in there. You could put probably fold a fat quarter and put a fat quarter, or you could put it in a different size bag and just cut your top part there to be different. You could also stamp on there any of the stamps that came with it. You could put another little sticker. You could color the staples so that they match. You could do a lot of different things. So this is the second one that I'm making. This time I decided I wanted to make the hair on the head a little bit thicker. So I cut the body out completely once, and then I cut it out partially 2 additional times. And then I also cut it out partially for the glitter cardstock because I like that better for the cape than the solid black. If I would have had a metallic black, I probably would have used that. But I'm not going to say I don't have one. I couldn't find one. I probably have one buried someplace. But there I was looking for the full one. I find out later that I left it on the die cut machine. So I'll go get that in just a second here. But cutting out the hair again. This one, what you'll see as I put it on there later, I kind of make him, he almost looks like Elvis because he's got such a long sideburn on the one side there. So you could cut it out as close to or as big as you wanted to. But again, this one I'm just kind of eyeballing, just trying to get it so that it is just the cape or his wings. I would say it's a cape since it's Dracula and not a bat. And I'm going to put the arms over the top of him again. So, and I'm going to cut off the head because I don't need the head. And that is a Tim Holtz pokey tool, for lack of a better term there. You could use any kind of pokey tool that you may have. I think I also have a silhouette one that came with my Cameo, one that came with the portrait that I had from years ago. I think I've got a couple of Stampin' Up! Ones, so any of them work. I have collected a lot of things over the years, and you know, the tweezers there, the ones that I'm using, I just got as a 2-pack off of Amazon. Occasionally, Queen & Company will have those with their logo on them as a freebie if you order one of their kits, which if you've never used one of their kits, they are super cute because it comes with everything you need to do shakers. And I will do one of those here for Christmas because I have a couple of their Christmas ones. But I use the same red for the mouth and the teeth on this one. You could use, any color that you wanted. I did use a different color for the face. The first one I used was kind of a peachy color for the face and the hands. This time it was more of a white, not an off-white. It looks a little off-white on the red and the purple there, but it's more white than off-white, I think. But I start to glue the face down, and then I realize, nope, I probably need to glue the cape and the body down first. So you'll see me peel up the bottom portion of his face there in just a second so that I can put that stuff underneath his face, because I just like the roundness of his face over the top of the shirt more than I like the shirt over the top of the face. So I think I did it. If it's lined up perfectly, the face will fit down into the shirt and you won't have to worry about it overlapping. I don't do anything perfectly. It's overrated. So I wanted to make sure I had it pulled up and out of the way so that I could get it up underneath his head there. And then the shirt, I did red just like I did the last time as well. I had it, so I just decided to use it. But you could do it in any color that you wanted. You could do it in pattern paper if you wanted to. Same thing with his full body. You don't have to do the multi-layers like I did there with the cape. You could just do it as whatever color you do the background for his legs and everything. But I, like I said, kind of like the shimmering part of it. His mouth makes it look like, you know, he's kind of dancing or being Michael Jackson. So, and then here's where the hair comes in. The first one I cut pretty normal. Comes down to about his ear, and then the second one comes down in front of his ear. So it's the Elvis vampire. But I am just using the glue to glue them both down, and using the tweezers to try and spare my fingers a little bit. I'm not very good at that, but. And then that completes the second Dracula, vampire, or whatever you want to call him. Oh, sorry, yes, forgot the hands. These stick better. I don't push on them as much and they stick down better, so. Just a little dab of glue. You don't need a ton. You do need a little more than what if you were putting it on just regular cardstock, since you're putting it on the glitter, but it's still not, you don't need a ton of it. Decided not to use my finger. Maybe it wouldn't stick to me this time. Used my tweezers instead. And I apologize if you can hear the air conditioner or the dehumidifier in the background. But now this one is done. I did not add any additional sparkle or give him any pink cheeks or, you know, try to put any eyelashes on him or give his eyes any kind of anything. But you could definitely do that if you wanted to, just to give him a little bit more. So I decided I was going to use purple paper as the first layer of my card that would go behind the Dracula and the sentiment that we're going to put on there. So that one is probably about 5 1/8, or 5. It's probably about 5 1/8 by about just under 4 inches. And then I decided to trim it off just a little bit more there at the bottom, so I go down to almost 5, by almost 3 3/4, but it's just it's a little bit more than 5 and a little bit more than 3 3/4. But you could go all the way down to 5 and 3 3/4. That would be fine. I then decided it needed a little something. So I decide to go and get some an embossing folder. I used a brick style embossing folder. It is one that I got from Joann's years ago. It did not have a name on it, but I think it was from Joann's, and I think it was a maybe a Doris folder, maybe. Usually they have their names on it, and this one did not have a name on it, so I'm not 100% sure. And then I use my Tim Holtz Distress Ink in Vintage Photo to just put a little bit of brown kind of right down the center of the purple, not all over the whole thing, just to dirty it up a little bit. And the little sponge thing that I use there is a Tim Holtz one as well. And then I'm using my Tim Holtz spritzer here to clean the ink off of, so that I don't get it on the back of my white cardstock that I use as my card base. And this is my Misty. I only have the mini. I also have the Tim Holtz one that's a little bit larger, but it's harder to get in my work area. That gets very crammed after a while, but it does fit larger sizes than the A2 size piece of cardstock there. So I am using the sentiment in here that I think goes along with the Dracula, and that's a have a fang-tastic night. So I'm just going to cut down a piece of paper there just a little bit more so that it fits inside the Misty. And I try to always line it up in the corner just in case I have to do it again. I do have a sticky mat, kind of like a gel mat in the Misty, so that I don't have to use the magnet or the tape. I do have the magnet, and I have used tape before, but the little gel mat that I got off of Amazon works okay for it, and it fit perfectly in the Misty. And then the ink that I'm using is some of the Lisa Horton Cloud 9 ink. I think it's pumpkin spice and glitter? Shimmer. Pumpkin spice shimmer. And I do take it off the screen and hit it with my heat gun just to make sure that it's dry. And then I also let it sit there for a little bit. I don't want to accidentally rub it and smear it and have to do it all over again. So. And I could have waited and put this away, but for whatever reason I decided to struggle and let you guys witness it as well. And then these little tag dies I also got off of Amazon. It was a whole set. They all came together in one. They cut out probably differently than any of our name brand companies do, because they kind of cut out a border all the way around all of them. So they've got two cut areas there on the back of each of those dies. So you get the inside there, but then you get this really thin border that goes all the way around as well. And sometimes, you know, don't use it, but I wanted to pop this one up, so I was going to use it behind it so that it gave it a little bit more dimension. So I'm going to clean up a little bit here and get things laid out and kind of how I want them. And then I'll decide here just in a minute that I don't think the purple is enough. There needs to be a little bit more color to it. I decided to go with orange. I could have as easily went with black and it would have been okay as well. But I decided to go with orange, so I'm sticking the purple down on top of the orange. And I'm not squeezing too hard. You can kind of tell where I squeeze harder because the line gets a little thicker. But you don't need a lot. Now, I did need a little more on this because it is a textured cardstock. I needed to be sure I got the bumped up parts. And you could have done this either way with the bricks raised and on the mortar kind of on the inside. I chose to do it with the mortar as the embossed and the brick as the debossed, so it's going in there. And now I'm just going to use the same glue and put it down onto the card base. I could have used tape to put the orange down on the card base though. And then again, I'm going to just use some glue there to glue the small frame down to the cardstock. And I'm using my tweezers again to hold it just because it is so small. And if I didn't use my tweezers, I think I would probably get the frame distorted when I put it on the card. I would like have it, because it is so flimsy, that the tweezers just kind of help me put it down on there. But you don't have to use tweezers. You can use your own fingers or you know, whatever you wanted to help you put it down there. For me, it was the tweezers. I decided the yellow is a little too yellow, too clean, too crisp, so I used just what's left on the blending tool there to kind of put a little bit of that vintage photo around the edge of the yellow cardstock. And then I'm using some foam squares. These are ones that I got at the Dollar Tree. And I personally like using the scissors that are the Teflon scissors to cut it. It doesn't stick as bad. That's why I pulled out my other small scissors there. The blades of those scissors are thicker than the Cuddlebees, and so I don't like them for cutting out like the hair and things like I did on the Dracula or the vampire. So that's why I have two different pairs there. You don't need two different pair. If you were going to get one over the other, I would definitely go with either the Cutterbees, or I think Tim Holtz has some that are like the Cutterbees that are thin, but they're Teflon. So best of both worlds there. But you can kind of see how it just frames it, lets you see the purple a little bit different, so it looks like it sticks up more than maybe what it really does. And then I decide to pop up the Dracula as well there, and I'm just cutting the foam squares in half. His legs are really, really small, but you'll see that I try to cut a little piece to at least put on some of them, just because I don't want them to bend or get distorted too terribly bad. It may not hold up. If I were to mail this through the mail, they'd probably get squished and pushed to the side, but it made me feel better at the time that I stuck something there, but you would not have to. You could also just die cut 3 or 4 more pieces of the body of the vampire or Dracula and glue those to the back, and that would give you some dimension as well, and you wouldn't have to worry about putting foam squares on there at all if you wanted some dimension. You could also just glue them straight down. You wouldn't have to give them any dimension at all. And these are so tiny that it's hard to get them off, but I use the little pokey tool there to put it down, and then I try to grab it to hold it while I pull off the paper. And then I use my tweezers just to help me put it down on the paper. I don't go for straight on things like that, because I don't know if I can't see straight, if my straight is not straight, if my head's crooked, I don't know, but usually I don't get things perfectly straight. But that's what makes them handmade, right, is if we just go with it. So I'm going to clean up a little bit here, and I'm going to show you some pictures here at the end. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great afternoon. Bye.